Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this presentation. My name is Sharon Bird, and I'm part of the K2 team here in New Zealand. Today, joining me from the K2 team is Hendrik Venter and Adam Castle, and they will help me answer your questions at the end of this presentation. So let's get underway. Just a couple of things before I start. There's a couple of terms that I will use. Most of you should know what they mean. Bubble, meaning the group of people that you have been in lockdown with, and PPE, personal protection equipment. Okay, so I think it's fair to say the last 8 weeks have been very challenging for us all. Our working and life environment has changed considerably. We're starting to see companies change the way in which they work. We've got Twitter, for example. They've sent out a note to their team saying, you know what, guys, we're going to work from home indefinitely. And even in New Zealand, we've got organisations that are reorganising the workspace to allow for more room. So that means the teams are having to get together and decide who's going to work in the office versus work from home, and they're scheduling that up. So we have to consider in the workspace now the risk to ourselves and, importantly, also to our clients. We have to be vigilant in protecting one another. So some of the new risks that are facing businesses as we return to work, as you can see on screen, are ensuring that our teams can work in a safe way. Do they have the available PPE that they need? You know, cleaning and hygiene of the workspace has changed. No longer does the cleaner come in after work and dust the desks and do a bit of vacuuming. There's constant cleaning going on. Air quality and ventilation needs to be looked at. We need to maintain the workspace after it's been locked down for 8 weeks or so. And what we're going to be discussing today, how are we going to track and check our employees' health on an ongoing basis? So risk management for returning workers is all about capturing the information in an easy to use way, map and model the data in a meaningful way, identify the risks to our workers and clients, track those individuals, and specifically what we're dealing today, managing the risk through reporting. Timely and accurate reporting is really paramount. A lot of our organisations are doing it through spreadsheets or emails. That's one way of doing it. It's probably not particularly efficient, but I think more importantly, when they are surfacing up that information to their management team, it's not necessarily consistent. So, what are some of the benefits in using K2 solutions to help manage the risk? Well, they're fast and easy to build. Given the amount of changes that are going on currently, it's easy to change the application to suit your needs. Process automation, you don't want to have to be chasing things along, finding out where they are. You want all that information available to you by looking at a screen. The nice thing also is because it's a cloud-based solution, there's no infrastructure requirements, and it's integrated with the typical applications that we use like Azure AD, Office 365, and Power BI. So what are some of these outcomes of using this type of application? Well, it's better visibility and planning, which is really important, managing the infection risk, and improved scheduling and cash flow are byproducts of understanding your team, where the infection is, what your team's looking like as far as getting back to work. So before we start the demo, I just wanted to mention that although we're showing it on a desktop today, these solutions are easily portable to mobile devices such as your iOS, Android, and Windows. So let's get underway with the demo. Okay, so the screen that you're seeing here is a typical out-of-the-box K2 dashboard for your usual run-of-the-mill user. Down the side here, they have available to them tasks that may have been allocated to them through different process workflows, and all the forms that they have available to them. The one that we're going to look at today, of course, is the return to work. So a little bit of background of the organisation that's using this solution. They're a service industry. They have a number of people that go out and work on client sites, as well as a support team in the background supporting that work. Before, the team had received an email to ask them to complete this form before they can return to work, so that as an organisation we can assess the risk of our workforce. You'll notice it's a really simple form. Simple's good. You're not going to have the time to go out and train people how to complete this form, so it needs to be self-explanatory. So let's just go through the form and have a look at some of the things that we can do with forms to make it easier for users and to make sure that we capture all the information that we need. So the first thing there, of course, is what day did you go into isolation? Here in New Zealand, it was the 26th of March, so we're going to default that information through. We don't want them to have to fill in information if they don't have to. So how many people in your bubble? Once again, these are the people that you are fortunately or unfortunately locked down with for the last 7 to 8 weeks. I'm going to say that I've got 6 in my bubble. Was anybody sick? Yes, they were. And did I stay in my bubble? No, I was a bit out and about and I probably shouldn't have been. Do you have any health issues? Yes. And it asks what's the health issues there. So I'm just going to say that I've got asthma. Have you been sick since lockdown? Yes. And then it's going to ask me whether I've had a test for COVID-19. And I'm going to say no. So that's from our health perspective. Now let's look at it from a work perspective. Can I work from home? Yes, I can. Do I work on site with clients? I absolutely do. How many people do I normally work with? This becomes important for managing your risk as far as group size goes. So I'm going to put 10 plus there. And do I need any PPE? Yes, I do. And then it's going to ask me what I need. So I'm going to have one of each of those. And is there anything else that I wish to mention at this stage? No. And I'm going to say I can confirm the information is accurate. And on your little mobile devices, they can use their finger to sign, or I can use my mouse here, and then I can submit that. If I've forgotten any of the questions that I need to answer, it's going to come up on screen and let me know that. But if I submit successfully, which I have here, it's going to give me that notification as well. So that's from your staff's perspective. As a manager, as an executive team, or as a general manager, what are the things that you can now see based on the information that's been collected? And here we have it. So you'll notice there are some similarities from the previous screen, except you've got a lot more detail available to you. You've got a number of solutions that have been built that you have access to, and what we're dealing with today, the COVID-19 application and the different forms that are available. First thing we're going to do is just have a look at the response from our users or our team, and then we're going to make some decisions on whether they get tested, and I'm going to show you what that process looks like in the background. So I'm just going to go and open this form. We'll come back and have a look at the pretty diagram shortly. Okay, so you've seen this form before. This has been completed by your team member. And as a manager, I'm just going to go through and have a little bit of a read of it. You notice up here, it's got an alert for me that they have been sick and they have not been tested. So the actions that I can take on this are, I can either have no test required, then I can just put some notes and complete the process, or in this case, I'm actually going to say yes, a test is required. Now when I select that, you'll notice this map that comes up. Right in the middle here is a little house. Now that's the location of the user that completed this form. This is hooked into our AAD, so it knows where the location of our employee is. And overlaying that now, you'll see all the medical centres that are available in the area. I'm going to be kind to this employee and say, well, D looks the closest, so let's go and select that. And what it's done down here, it has selected that medical centre. It's asking me what date I want the test to be done. I want it to be done tomorrow. And I'm just going to put in here, test urgently. Now what this is going to do when I send the appointment is it's going to send a note off to the medical centre, say, hey, you can expect this person tomorrow for a COVID-19 test. And it's also going to send a notification to the user that they need to go to this location for that test. So I'm going to send that appointment now. Okay, so what's happening in behind the scenes here? I'm just going to have a look at the view flow. So as we've captured the data from the user, it's come into the manager, and one of the things that they've had to decide is a test required? And I've said yes. So what it's done is it's arranged for that test, and it also knows that in 14 days, that test needs to come up for review, and we need to decide at that point whether the person goes on leave for another 2 weeks or gets another test, or they can come back to work. You notice just as we were looking at these highlighted to green. So a user can come in here, or a manager can come in here and see exactly where in the process it is. It will also tell you on the work list by the status, but here's a nice graphical way of seeing where you are in the process. So in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have that meeting, at which time we're going to decide whether we do a retest along this process flow here, and they will wait another 2 weeks. The employee may decide that they're not going to come back to work, so we're going to then close out the process, or they are ready to come back to work here. Now that they're ready to come back to work, you'll remember that we asked the question around PPE. They do require some, this person. So what it's now going to do is kick off a process, send an order to your stock provider, so that could be in-house or externally, order the PPE and send it out to the individual that needs it, and then it will close out this process. I can also add comments and attachments. You'll notice the test that I ordered is here. Any comments I add in here will be added to the list as well, so you've got a full audit trail of any conversations that you've had with this individual. I also have the ability, once the results come back, to attach the test results. Once again, those are available as well. Okay, so let's go back to some of the diagrams. So what I was looking at there was the work list. So these are all the tasks that have been assigned to me as a manager to go and deal with. Okay, so let's have a look at this information. This is the infection report. So this is all about our organisation and the infections that we currently have. Now for New Zealand, this is probably, we're past this stage at the moment, touch wood, and we're not seeing a great deal of infections. In Australia, doing well, but we are seeing some clusters pop up that would have to be managed through this process. So as I guess a GM, I'd like to have a look at the profile of what our infections look like. And these are our teams here, you know, what percentage of our teams have got infections, and down here, what roles are being impacted as well. So if you've got a stores team, for example, and you've noticed a lot of infections in that stores team, but not so much in some of them, maybe the office workers team, you may want to redeploy people into roles to keep your organisation functioning. Now the information off to the right here is also useful, and that it gives you a nice graphical view of days since the test. So the red ones, of course, are not in a position to come back to work. The orange ones are nearing that stage where they can be reassessed, and your green ones, hopefully, are good to go. Now I can sort this information too if I want to look at it by department, see how many people in finance. See, the finance team are looking pretty good there at the moment. So the next report that we're going to look at based on the information we have captured is the non-submits. So as a manager, I'm quite interested in my team that I've sent this email out to previously, how many of them have responded? And I can see my name here, so I'm just going to see of my team, these 12 here have not responded. Now, if we look at it from an organisational perspective, we can see that our casuals, which are our contractors, casuals and part-timers, account for 70% of the non-submits, which is probably typical. Your full-timers tend to respond to these surveys more so than your casuals. I'm going to send this out to the casuals because I really want to make sure that they are suitable to go back on site. So what I can do is I'm just going to do a position sort, and I'm going to deal with casuals and contracts, not the part-timers today. So I want to resend that form. So I can do that individually, or I can do a bunch of them. So I'm just going to select that one down to here. And all those are highlighted are now about to get a second email with that form requesting that they return it to me before they can start work. Once again, as I showed you in the previous screens, that will go on to the audit trail of this has been sent out again to this individual. So we'll be able to see how many times we're having to send it out. Now the final dashboards that we've got to look at are probably more from your CEO or executive team. In this example, we're looking at what is the risk to the organisation throughout the country. You see the risk scores across the top here. They're based on the answers in the questionnaire. And I'm quite interested on where my high risk areas are. So if I have a look at the map here, you'll notice I've got a couple of little wedges showing up. And these people have got very high risks. So they're in Wanganui and Tauranga. And I can see out to the side that they're actually casual, the departments they're in and the roles that are affected. I can go down here and have a look at any of the risk profiles. Forward's probably the next one I'm a little bit more concerned about. And you can see down on the side here that I have a lot more people that are at risk level 4 than I did at 5. And of course, those that are at very low risk, I have a number of those too. So these are the people with no risk that I may wish to deploy to, for example, Tauranga, where we saw that 5, or Wanganui, to cover those staff so that our business can operate. The other dashboard item that we have is all the responses from our employees and what those look like. So it's split into 2, the first one being health. What is the health of our team looking like? How many people, if I want to know how many people didn't stay in their bubbles or how many were sick, I can just click on this and it's going to give me some information around how many were sick during the lockdown. From a work perspective, I'm quite interested in those that are working in groups of 10 or more. And then it gives me, of that group that have worked with 10 or more, how many work on site. And if I hover over this, I can see that those that can work on site are 182, but those that work in groups of 10 or more, there is 18 of them. So even though 10 plus is probably a high risk as far as clusters are concerned, I can see that not many of them are actually working out on site. And of those that work in groups of 10 plus, how many of them can work from home? 26 can actually work from home. So it's giving you a lot of information and drill down on the data that you've captured so that you can start making decisions around your business, where to redeploy people, which is going to improve your cash flow. What PPE do you require, and your scheduling of staff as well. Okay, so let's just go back to our presentation. Okay, so before we take your calls, just a couple of things that I wanted to mention to you. I just wanted to remind you that K2 Fast Forward completed last week, and these sessions are now available on demand along with sessions from our K2 customers around the globe. A couple of sessions here that we've highlighted. The Microsoft Digital Stores session, where they managed to achieve a 25% time saving in the e-commerce division using K2, and Shine Lawyers, who talk about delivering the ultimate customer experience through intelligent process automation with reference to their customer onboarding. You'll notice that we have a link there. We really encourage you to go and take a look at that link. There's a range of customer presentations and solutions that are available to watch on demand in your own time. So we run these sessions on a regular basis. The next one, as mentioned here, is on the 28th of May, and we'll be discussing there having users in mind so that you can create project success and a solid foundation for intelligent automation to thrive. If you want to schedule a virtual workshop, we've got Emma's details here, so please contact her and she can arrange that with you. So thank you very much for attending. We appreciate that, and now we will take your questions.
Hi Sharon, there is a few. The first one was earlier in your presentation you did showcase the fact that you could sign a document. The question here is, does it integrate with e-signature tools such as DocuSign?
So yes, it does. I'll hand these questions over to Hendrik.
Cool. Hi, good afternoon, guys. Thanks, Emma. Yes, we in this specific scenario, we didn't integrate the solution with DocuSign. The customer basically just wanted to get his users to provide a nice, simple, easy to use meet stylus type sign experience, and there was no real requirements for digital signatures in any case. It's more just a nice to have that we added to the form, because probably about half the user population were accessing the forms on mobile devices. But we could quite easily include DocuSign into something like this.
Great. We had two questions in a similar sort of direction. One of them says, is this able to be integrated with existing HR portals?
So the question or the answer is probably yes, but it does depend on the HR portal that's being used. Quite a few of our customers are using Office 365 or SharePoint-based portals to surface some of the HR information, and K2 plugs into those out of the box. It's really simple, nice and easy to do. In our scenario, we pretty much built a K2 only solution for these guys. And the next step probably would be to integrate it into the rest of their intranet and extranet offerings.
Great. I think that answers the other question, which was, can this be showcased in SharePoint? So I think you've covered that one. And then how does escalations work? So if a person hasn't responded to the survey or has been requested to get a test, how is it escalated if that hasn't come back with any information?
So there's a couple of ways we can do that. The out-of-the-box way is just to use the K2 escalation functionality, where we don't get a response back from a user. We can fire off an escalation to send them an email or send their manager an email. In the solution that we built that Sharon just demoed, we kind of left the escalation process up to the management team. The reason for that is the team initially at least wanted to have full hands-on control, and they actually wanted to follow up with the people. What we've seen as part of this lockdown exercise is that even though everybody was kind of locked in their houses for a while, there was a lot more collaboration. So we didn't have a need for automated escalations. The managers were actually talking to their people and their teams on a pretty regular basis. So by the end of that cycle, we had pretty low non-submit rate. So we didn't have to do escalations right off the bat, which was nice.
Okay, that's great. Well, if there isn't any more questions, we can probably close this off for today. Thanks everyone for coming along. As mentioned by Sharon, there is a session on May 28, which is next week at 3 p.m. Australian time, Eastern Standard Time, which we're going to be covering off intelligent automation. So if there isn't anything more, we can probably call it a day. Great. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining.